Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. It's promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time here. We're going to get started momentarily. Before we get started, a few technical things. Click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your webinar control panel. Minimize that control panel, get it out of your way. This is important if you're on a single monitor, or drag it out to your second desktop if you're using a dual monitor setup or more. Again, allows you to get the full visual effect of our presentation today. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're here to talk about some payroll, pay period reports in Church Windows Payroll. Not going to be a terribly long event today. Probably won't even take all 20 minutes, maybe not even take half of it, or about half of it, but not a very long topic here today. Our topic is taken from our P102 workbook, pages 25 to 27. Again, 3 fairly short pages, but there are some things to talk about on those reports for sure. They are important and useful reports for us, certainly. If you've got questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. If I don't get to, I'm not able to find a spot to answer them during the event, I'll certainly be happy to stick around and answer those at the end. We are recording today's event, so we'll have the recording, the video out on our support center page here sometime between now and the next day or two, out there as quickly as possible. Just letting you know, folks, that just kind of introducing this now is that our website is being reworked, and we're releasing our new website here later on this week, I think. So just keeping an eye out for that. This support center will still be there. All of the videos and documents will still be available to you. All there. It's just going to look a little different and be better overall. Okay. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about these particular 3 payroll reports that we're discussing today. Another webinar event or video may be out there that's better suited to answer your questions, or of course, please call us at 800-533-5227. Our support technicians are available until 6 p.m. Eastern Time if you need us, of course. Okay, so the 3 reports we're talking about today are here under payroll, and right here our pay period earnings report near the, about a third of the way down the list, and then immediately below that our pay period deductions report. The pay period deductions report we're going to talk about second. It is a very important report. Some of you may already be using the pay period deductions report, but the reports that we're going to look at first initially are these pay period earnings reports. Okay, so basically, as described on page 25 of our P102 workbook. Oh, folks, and you can first find the workbooks out on our workbooks page at our website. If you have P102, you turn to page 25, follow along with me if you like, or you can purchase the workbooks online, of course. But basically, the pay period earnings reports are these reports are pretty much as described. It's basically a summary or review of the earnings for employees for a particular given period, okay, of time. You decide. It could be 1 pay period, it could be a quarter, it could be the entire year. It is your choice, okay? So when we go to pay period earnings report, it asks us, which employees do we want to see? You can choose specific employee if you want to run it for just 1 employee, or select employees, or we can run it for all. And we're going to run it for everybody. So we're just going to leave it as all employees/contractors, okay? Then when we go to next, here is where it is prompting us to choose or enter the pay date that we're wanting from and to. So again, it could be 1 pay date in particular. It could be a range of pay dates. You decide, okay? So I'm going to choose just 1 pay date for 1 pay period in this case. So we're going to do January 15th, 2021 through January 15th, okay? Isolating 1. And there's a kind of a reason why I'm isolating that on there. And if we need be, we'll come back and we'll run it for a longer pay date or pay period if we need to. But then once we've entered the desired date or date range, we're going to go to next. And then it pops up and asks us, which report type do we want to see? And it's either our taxable earnings report or our pay type earnings report. And they're both useful in their own way, okay? But we're going to leave them both checked for the purposes of our report. You can just run one or the other if you wish, but you got to pick one or the other. If you don't check either one, it's not going to produce any reports for you, of course. So we're going to, because we're looking at both of them on the webinar, I'm just going to run them for both simultaneously. So then when we click next, it takes a few seconds, but then it gathers the data, and we clearly see here in the upper right, it says 1/2. That tells us we've got 2 reports here, 2 pages essentially on our report, okay? So we're going to look at both of these, but we're initially on our pay period earnings report. And like I said, as described, folks, it shows our, is the payroll posted on the left, which employee. It shows us what they were being paid for, meaning was it regular pay, overtime, additional vacation, and sick time units. So it tells us, in this case, there's nobody here that's been in this pay period that was paid either overtime, additional, vacation, or sick. So it all shows up under regular units. Excuse me. So clearly, like Jimmy and George are hourly employees because it shows 55 hours or 20. The others are salaried. I just want to show you that for salaried employees, we don't have to have any units entered. You don't have to have anything entered for salaried employee. We've just chosen for Steve or for John or Roger that we want to enter 1 unit for them, but I want to show you don't have to, okay? It still calculates their earnings and their taxes and what have you for salaried employee. Hourly employees, of course, it does require you enter the number of hours they've worked times their hourly rate. And then it shows the total units for the period. Then it shows our earnings without allowances. So basically, folks, this would be our gross pay for the period in question. Then our allowances, then our Social Security earnings, Medicare earnings, federal wages earnings, state or local. Essentially, these figures equate to what would be our W-2 figures for the period. So if I ran it for the whole year, it would be the amounts that would show up either in, boxes, 3 or 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Social Security and Medicare, or 3 or 5. Federal would be, of course, box 1. State would be 16, local would be 18. So these would equate with our wages in our W-2 boxes. But it does show our actual reported wages. So we notice here Larry has nothing for Social Security or Medicare, and because he's a minister. So nothing gets reported for him as he's self-employed in Social Security wages or Medicare wages. So that is not unexpected. Same would be true for Steve, our associate pastor. No Social Security, no Medicare. So one of the things I like to show for this report is we notice that for Larry, the earnings without allowances is different than the federal reported wages, even with our allowances. Why is that the case? Why would those figures be different? Well, most likely probably what that means is that Larry has some non-taxable deductions. Okay, so something for like medical insurance or, something that he is having deducted from his paycheck is not considered part of federal reported or state reported wages. We know that local is. Whatever that deductions is, I would have to run the deductions report for that to try to be able to figure out what that is. But that is why that earnings without allowances figure is different from federal or state for Larry, is most likely. So again, the report provides us with some useful information, okay? And the same would be true for Jimmy. So we see here $880 of earnings without allowances. His reported Social Security, Medicare, federal, state wages are, looks like $35 less than that. Most likely it's a non-taxable deduction, okay, non-reportable deduction. So again, useful report. When we click down on the down arrow, it now takes us to our pay type earnings report. Again, as described, it shows pay type. So what did they earn for, were they paid regular, overtime, additional, sick or vacation, total units, and their regular earnings. And then their total earnings, in this case on the right, would be their total earnings overall, in this case, including things like allowances, as clearly as Larry and or Steve Jones are clearly showing us. So 1315 plus 720 equals 2035. So their total earnings, taxable, non-taxable status is not in play regarding this report. Okay. So just an important, again, the reports are suitable and useful for certain specific things depending on what it is you may or may not want to be, what you want to be looking for. Okay. But these reports are very, very important and useful in their own way. Okay. All right, so let's click finish through that. And then let's go back to reports and talk about our pay period deductions report. Let me take a quick look at my, nope, I've kind of gone through that in a lot more detail than certainly the pages on the page on the workbook pages are indicating for sure. Pay period deductions report. So again, it is one where it's useful for seeing what is deducted from employees' pay for a particular period, whether it's a single pay period or a broader pay period. Again, I can choose which employees I want to see. Again, for our webinar, we're going to leave everybody. We're going to go to next. And again, it allows us to enter a pay dates from and to, pay period, a pay date from and a pay date to. I'm going to enter something here which is more in keeping with, this is a report that we will commonly use when we're trying to generate our tax deposits for our 941 report. It's not exclusively what it can be used for, but we're going to use that for this report today. So let's assume that our deposit schedule with the IRS is monthly. So we're going to backdate this to our first month of the year, January 31st through January 31st. If I was semi-weekly, I could certainly enter it for January 1st through the 15th or through the 16th through the 30th, 31st. Or if it's quarterly, my deposits are quarterly, made quarterly, I would run it for an entire quarter. Your choice. When we go to next, it brings up our report, and it does take a few seconds to generate it, but same thing, similar to our other reports. It shows the gross pay for our employees for the period, Social Security and Medicare deduction or withholdings, federal income tax that was held, state taxes that were withheld, local, gross less tax, then any description and amounts for deductions that were deducted from employees' pay, not withholdings, tax withholdings, but deductions, with the deduction amount and what the net pay was for the period, okay? Net versus gross. So it really does add up across the page. So if you take the gross pay, deduct the taxes, everything for taxes, total deductions, then deduct that, it should equal the net pay to the far right. You literally should be able to add that up across the screen, okay? Or deduct that across the screen, subtract that. But what we're really here to look at, and what I want to look at here is we notice down the left side here, it says 941 deposit right here. So if I were to run my 941 for the first quarter, monthly is my deposit schedule, my January or month one tax liability for 2021 should be $2,202.72, okay? I don't have to run the 941 report in order to be able to determine what my tax deposit for the tax liability is for the period. I can run the pay period deductions report to see that or to generate that total. I can run the 941, but I don't have to, okay? And we notice here that in the middle column, in one of the columns further to the right, it shows the employee's deduction for Social Security and Medicare, and then doubles that amount to include the employer's share. When I want to run, say, my state tax liability, whatever that is, if my state taxes are deposited quarterly, I would run the report for a quarter, and then the total right here at the bottom of the state column is what my state tax liability would be for the period, okay? So again, a very useful report in a variety of ways, and then it even does show my local taxes that were withheld for the date range that I've entered. So run this report when you're wanting to see what was deducted or withheld from employees' paychecks for a particular period of time, whether that supports your federal 941 deposit schedule or requirements, or your state or your local, okay? So when I'm going to want to go into my accounting now and post those tax payments, whether I go online to EFTPS or do it, or my State Department of Revenue website page and post those and pay those taxes, I'm going to use typically this report. to be able to generate what those totals were. And when I'm ready to even consider paying my taxes or my payments for things like my pension payments or my insurance payments that are withheld or deducted from employee's pay for a period, I can see exactly what was deducted or withheld from payroll using this pay period deductions report. So I went a little bit longer than I expected, folks, but that is where we are going to leave our topic for today.